Action! Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billie. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the sweater that I was wearing in the last episode because Jay Henderson was asking about it. She said she had never seen it before, and I didn't realize that when I did a knit along with a group of other people that I had never talked about my own individual project, but it seems like I did not. So I'm going to share that with you today. I'm also going to share a couple other summer sweaters since we are in the thick of summer. I've been hoping to do a knit along with you for a summer sailor kind of sweater. I'd like to get a sense of who's interested, so I'll insert a picture here of the vintage sweater that I'm thinking of assembling. It might get to be a little bit late in the summer, so I'm not sure how many people would still be interested in starting a summer project during the month of August. So, put a comment below to let me know if you're interested. And I'll try and pull that together quickly. And then I wanted to bring you up to date on my Norwegian ski sweater that I've been working on for a couple of months. So I guess in that order, this is the sweater that I was wearing last week. Oh boy, when there's light coming through it, you can't really see. There are these open slits all around the neckline. I interviewed Sophie few years ago, it seems, and she was wearing this sweater in kind of a nude color, and I just fell in love with it. So I politely asked her if she would mind if I copied it, of course in a different color. So the reason I chose this color was I had purchased this vintage hat. I thought I had talked about this, but evidently not. Anyway, the color of the hat just seemed really beautiful to me, and I thought I should knit a sweater to go with it. So one year at Vogue Knitting Live during the pandemic, when they were only going virtually, Jen from South Africa was showing her yarns, and people were shopping with her online, but she was just presenting her yarns. After her presentation, I asked her if she would stay on with me. I grabbed the hat and I said to her, can you try and match up this color for me? So over the internet, she showed me this color. First, she asked me to describe in words the color of this hat. And to me, it reads kind of blue, but she said, yeah, well, is it like a gray blue? Is it a purple blue? And I said, well, it is sort of like a steel blue kind of color. It's hard to describe when you have to really parse it like that. And she showed me this color yarn, and I held the hat on my computer up to her yarn, and I thought, looked pretty good. I still think it looks pretty good. So I will put on the screen the name of this yarn and the fiber content. It's done in a very interesting way. Not only does it have this perforations around the neck, but it also has perforations that go down through the fabric. And if I remember correctly, you did a series of slip stitches. No, maybe that wasn't it. I think you did like a yarn over, and then you just dropped it down to a place where there wasn't a drop over and it didn't continue. It was something like that, where you did something on a few rows, you pulled it down, and really you had to physically be involved with opening these up. Here's a section that I didn't completely pull it down. So right here you can still see there's a little stitch there, but if I pull it, I can release that stitch. It's a little scary because you think it's going to run all the way down, but it doesn't. So it opens it up. That's why they all look a little bit different, because as I was knitting, I didn't make a concerted effort to release all of them. But they stop at the bottom row of where you've done that special stitch. There is ribbing at the bottom. It looks like it's 2x2 ribbing. If I had it to do over again, I would make it shorter. I would make it a little more, not totally cropped, but a little more cropped. It was knit from the bottom up, so it would be hard for me to pull this back and shorten it. It would be a nightmare, actually. So I'm not going to do that. As I recall, getting this neckline to be the right contour so that it wasn't slipping down on my shoulders was a little bit of a trick, and I played with it a little, but the fabric, as you can see, is very drapey, very airy. It's just perfect for summer. Even on the hottest, most humid day in New York, it's still comfortable to wear. So that's one of my summer sweaters. Another is my Ranunculus. Not vintage, but it has, to me, a sort of vintage vibe. I think this looks very like old lace kind of a thing. This is a fairly well-known pattern by Midori Hirose. I used a very chunky cotton yarn for this. This is just water. It's not a flaw in the fabric or anything. I steamed this to get some of the wrinkles out before I showed it to you. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, I like to knit things that I can pair up with jewelry that I have, and you can see these earrings are just the perfect shade for this. In the other case, it was a hat, but most people who have knit this have not done it in such a chunky yarn, but the pattern's really versatile. You can do a lot of different things with it. But mine, because it's cotton, is also really appropriate for summer. And then, of course, there's the sweater that I'm wearing, which is the As If Tee, done with silk mohair, and I'll put the yarn on screen when I edit this. I think it was some kind of yarn made in Turkey. It's not wool for sure. It's got little speckles of color in it. It's kind of, you know, subtle and pretty, but you can see very airy, so pretty comfortable also for summer. I think it came out really great. This one I have shown you before because I did a group chat podcast with a bunch of other people who had knit this As If Tee. Many people, just like Ranunculus, many people have also knit this. So I assembled a group of people to talk about theirs and to show all the different colorways that people dreamt up, and one was more spectacular than the next. I'll leave a link up here so you can go and take a look at that episode. Okay, now on to what I am currently knitting on, which is this Norwegian sweater that I'm designing. I borrowed the motif from a photograph that I had seen, but I'm designing just a very plain sweater that is knit from the bottom up. I have a little hem here to give it, like, you know, more stability in the front so it won't curl up, it'll hang nicely. No ribbing. I didn't want a ribbed bottom because I didn't want it being like blousey. I just wanted it to hang straight, sort of skim my body. this is the front, part of the front, and part of the back, which I did a little bit of waist shaping, but mostly I'm knitting it straight up. And what I did was, and I'll insert a picture here to show you, I'm still in the process of deciding what kind of shoulder arrangement I want to have, whether I want a drop shoulder or modified drop shoulder. I definitely don't want a set-in sleeve because it's too complicated with a busy pattern like this to match everything up. I didn't want to deal with that. So what I did was I took these two pieces and I stitched loosely, like I basted across here as if that was one shoulder. I left space for the middle for my neck, and then I basted as if this was another shoulder, and I tried that on to see, even though this is not at all the shoulder area, this is going to go straight up, so when I get to the shoulder area, it's going to look just like this. There'll just be more fabric below here. I tried it on, and I have a picture of it on my body that I'll show you. And with this width of fabric, which I need for my bust area, there's going to be way too much fabric out here for me to do a drop shoulder. And I just despise that look on myself. My shoulders are somewhat narrow. So I have pretty much decided that when I get to the underarm, which I'm almost there, I'm going to decrease in and then go straight up from there. So it still won't be the width of my shoulder. It will still drop down a bit, but then there'll be less excess fabric in here. Of course, when I get to that point, I'll baste again, and I have my sleeves that I can also stitch onto it when I get to that point. This sleeve I've basted so that I can try it on. And I was measuring as I went along, so I was pretty sure I was going to have a good fit. When I block it, I may try and ease it out a little bit just so I have a little more space in the sleeve. But you can see, it's almost to where I need it for the underarm. I need a little bit more probably, but I don't want to knit it and then have to rip it out. That's a real pain with a two-color stranded project. Once I get the front and the back basted again, I'll put it on and see how much more sleeve I have to knit. Anyway, that is sleeve number 1 and sleeve number 2. I was knitting these 2 at a time on the same circular needle that I'm using for the front and the back right now, so that all of my increases would be in exactly the same place. But yay, I have 2 sleeves and a good part of the front and the back, so I have definitely been making progress on this. I can tell you that this pattern is very potato chippy. It's easy to memorize once you've done it a few times. I've talked about this before, and maybe you can see it here. See the white diamonds? In the next band, those diamonds are shifted over 1 unit. So once you know what to do above the diamond and below the diamond and to the right and left of the diamond, you can figure out every single row all the way across. And it just repeats going across the row. So at this point, I've done so much of it. I no longer look at the chart that I designed. I looked at the chart in the very beginning to do the first couple of bands, but once I really got the hang of the motif, I no longer needed it. That's really saving a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I'm finding, it's kind of easy to just plow through a row and to have the goal of getting to one of these rows that's white all the way across. Now I designed that to be on a purl row so that I would be able to easily purl across in one color. Most of my purl rows, this is the fabric that's facing me. It's harder to see where the motif is. Sometimes I have to roll my knitting forward so I can see, oh yeah, I'm about to come up to this vertical line, or oh yeah, I'm about to start a new diamond. Because working off of this side, you really can't see that very much. But purling across in one color, piece of cake. I also plan to knit a matching hat, and if I have enough yarn left over, I'd like to do a pair of gloves. I'm not much of a mitten wearer, so I think a glove would be more well suited to me. And I found a picture of something that I'll insert here, which is probably the type of glove that I will knit should I have enough yarn. I wanted to show you how you can calculate how much yarn is left on your cone or on your skein. In the case of a cone, it's a sort of specialized example because you have to know how much the cone weighs before you can figure out how much yarn there is. Now, the yarn, let me show you what I have left, and then I'm going to make a video about how to figure out how much I actually have left at this point. So I had ordered 2 cones of the blue and also 2 cones of the white. I still have plenty, and I know for sure I have enough to finish the sweater without any worries. Basically, in order to know how much yarn is on here, I really need to know the weight of this cone. And since I don't have an empty cone of this type, it's really going to be like a guess, sort of. Color Mart did send me an empty cone. I'm not sure why. I guess they thought I might want to unwind some of this onto another cone so I could knit off of 2 cones. It was very nice of them. I will weigh this, deduct that amount from how much this whole thing weighs. That will tell me the weight of the yarn that's on here. I know that I started with 150 grams, so whatever the weight of this is, I should be able to figure out how many yards I still have. I'll do a separate video and I'll insert that video here, but it'll also be in a separate tutorial if you ever want to come back and look for it. Okay, so the first thing I do is I turn this on, and you'll see this come to 0. Okay, now it says 0. Where's my cone? Oh, okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is weigh this cone. 31.57 grams. Then I'm going to weigh this cone with the yarn on it, 100.50 grams. So I'm going to deduct the weight of this from the weight of this. That will give me the net weight of the yarn. And I'll show you how I tabulate how many yards that is. while I'm here, I'm curious to know how much this weighs. 144.58. And this one, 139.26. So I'll be calculating how many yards I have left, or how many meters, and then maybe yards of all of these. In the show notes below, you'll see a link on where you can purchase one of these on Amazon. They're under $10. It's a fabulous thing to have. I have no acquisitions. I'm a very good girl. I'm not buying yarn for things that I have not started yet. So I can't share anything like that with you. But since we were talking a little bit about hats today, I thought that I would go back in my archives and pull up a series of pictures and a little bit of video footage that I took a while back at the Fashion Institute of Technology. They have a museum and they change their small exhibitions periodically, and they did an exhibit on vintage hats. Right up my alley. All the hats were from the 30s and the 40s. So I will wind down this episode by showing you those. And having said all of that, I hope everybody's enjoying the summer and feeling well. Be careful of COVID. It's having a rise again. So if you're in crowded places, my public service announcement is please wear your mask. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.